Hey everyone, just real quick before we jump into the video, which I do appreciate you watching. This interview was meant to come out a while ago, but unfortunately my mental health did slow things down, so my apologies for that to begin with. And also, there was a weird issue when I recorded it. OBS did not separate the tracks like it had for my previous interviews, and that was because Windows did an update and messed up all my sound settings. So I do apologize if there's some background noises and things that you don't really want to hear. But with that said, let's jump into it. Hello lads, ladies, gents, ladetts, whoever, whatever, welcome back to another video. Today I am interviewing the ever enigmatic Alpha Chrome Yayo. I was so scared I was going to butcher your name there. It took me a second. So I do apologize for the slight pause at the start there. But do you care to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It's a delight to talk. I'm Alpha Chrome Yayo. I'm a musician from Belfast in Northern Ireland. I make and release my own music, but I also work full-time composing for games, movies, and other cool stuff that I dig. Big music man. That's me in a nutshell.
So recently you got to work on a very incredible project that I have not stopped glazing, which is the Promise mascot agency game from Kaizen Gameworks. Can you tell me a bit about your experience when it came to working on that?
Yeah, sure thing. I mean, it's been a great project to work on. It's been a huge part of my life, basically, for the past 4.5, maybe 5 years, 4 years anyway. Because it's been in the works for a while. It released just over a month ago now. For anyone not familiar with the game, it's kind of it's a hard game to explain.
Yeah, it is. It's a very strange, unique experience, but like the best way I can put it, it's like Yakuza Persona meets like almost just a management game.
Yeah, I mean that's it in a nutshell, and that's very much how my involvement got started. Kaizen Gameworks approached me, I think about 4 years ago now, telling me about this game that they'd been working on, and everything they said about it just appealed to me so much. I'm a huge fan of the Yakuza Like a Dragon series. They mentioned that was a big influence. They also mentioned the fact that it was set in a cursed town in rural Japan, and that they wanted me involved to hopefully cook up some mostly kind of jazz fusion music, along with some slightly creepier, almost Twin Peaks vibes and influences from traditional Japanese music. Basically, all stuff that I just live and breathe anyway. I'm used to composing for quite a few different things, but it's extra nice when it's stuff that I just love with all my heart anyway. And I can, as soon as I heard about this game, I knew that even if I were to have no involvement with it, I was going to love this game. And I do love it with all my heart. So yeah, I couldn't say yes quick enough when I was asked to be involved, especially as I was and still am a massive fan of their previous game, Paradise Killer, which is, I think that's probably how I got talking to them in the first place. I think I'd posted something online about Paradise Killer. I think maybe I did a little cover of one of the songs in it or something, and that put me on the radar of the lovely people at Kaizen Gameworks, and yeah, that's how it all kicked off, and it's been great. I've loved every second of it. I mean, it's been difficult at times too, but these things always are. I mean, all the best things are difficult sometimes, but it's been a complete and utter joy, and I'm so glad that the game is out there in the world, and I'm so glad that cool people like yourself are digging it and are hopefully digging the music too. It's just been a consummate delight from start to finish.
Yeah, I've struggled to decide what my favorite part of the game is, whether it's the presentation in terms of just the art style, the voice acting, because that's phenomenal. Obviously, the absolutely incredible soundtrack with your hard work and sweat and tears that have gone into it.
Oh, so
I
kind.
I saw on Kaizen Gameworks YouTube page, you just released a video breaking down kind of the behind the scenes of one of the tracks. What got you sort of doing that? I just wanted to ask.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I don't know if it's maybe a big-headed thing to say, but I just love talking about what I do, and even more than that, I really love talking about all the influences, the stuff that inspires me, because this is a game that is the music, the music of the game and the art of the game is heavily inspired by Japanese media from the Showa era. So it's really, so when I'm making music that channels those kind of vibes, I equally want to talk about the stuff that I do and how I do it, but I also want to shout out the the sources that inspire me, the musicians that inspire me, the film directors, the game makers, because it's just important to me. You know, I dig this cool stuff. I want other people to know about it, and if I can also talk a bit about, you know, all the weird synths and strange and unusual Japanese instruments that surround me, you know, if I've got a chance to nerd out a bit about it, I'm gonna take it. so,
Yeah.
so yeah, I'll be making a few more of those videos too. I just love doing it. You know, it's nice to. I just like talking about cool stuff, whether it's stuff that I've made or it's stuff that I find really interesting. You know, you're not gonna get me to shut up about it, basically.
No, I'm a music nerd myself. I very much enjoy the behind the scenes and the just kind of the almost the science and art that get mixed together when it comes
Yeah,
to
exactly. Yeah,
a
yeah.
composition. Because in that video, as you said, and just before, how you were talking about some of the synth used, like what is sort of your go-to uh, instrument to compose on? Do you go synth first, or like for me, I personally, I always start on guitar and then sort of play into other instruments when I'm not lazy and just make everything on guitar.
Yeah, well, it's strange to say. Like when I was growing up, guitar was my main instrument. When I was 15 or 16, I just wanted to be Steve Vai, basically.
Yes,
You know,
which is
so
evident
I
by certain Ibanez guitar that you have that I wish I
yeah.
could steal from you because that thing is gorgeous.
Oh, I love it. That was basically a present to my 15-year-old self. I got like a grant from the Arts Council here in Northern Ireland a few years ago to get some new instruments, and the first thing I thought was, you know, I always wanted like a Steve Vai Ibanez, so I thought, well,
Mm,
screw it, I'm gonna
take it
this
while you
is
got
the
the
time.
chance.
I'm gonna exactly. So yeah, guitar's always been big for me, but nowadays I do mostly at least start with some kind of synthesizer. I mean, if I'm being perfectly honest, I usually start with like a small MIDI keyboard on my lap
Mm,
and some kind of soft synth, because I'm surrounded by hardware here, and I love like I mean, we were chatting earlier before we started recording about how it's nice to have hardware and tangible stuff, knobs to twiddle and betas to slide up and down. But you
yeah,
know, I think software is great too, both as a jumping off point and also just in general. You know, I think probably at least 60% of what I do is software based, and then the hardware is kind of the special sauce on top a
yeah.
lot of the time. So when I'm starting something, usually I've got some kind of soft synth dialed up. I like the Arturia stuff. So I've got a MIDI keyboard on my lap, some kind of electric piano sound, or you know, something fairly straightforward like a Rhodes piano or DX7 kind of sound,
Mm,
or just a regular piano sound. MIDI keyboard on my lap, and I usually start by trying to bash out a chord progression, but you know, it depends what the task in hand is. But generally, it starts there. Or sometimes it starts away from the computer, and I'm in the shower and I think about something, and then frantically, you know, dry myself
yeah.
off and try and,
Try to write it
you know,
down before you
try and write
forget.
it down either in a notebook or, you know, with a keyboard or something, you know,
Yeah.
just frantically get ideas out of my brain and, you know, recorded whether it's somehow, whether that's in a notebook or whether that's literally recorded into some software or something. But it,
No.
it generally starts like that. That's usually my MO.
Yeah, I've definitely been there a few times over the years. So like just with synth, because like I'm a big fan of basically anyone getting into music however they can. Um, do you have like a synth that you would recommend like for a beginner, or like a recording program where you're like, hey, maybe start here, like it's a little more gentle before going into the deep end, because a lot of people might see what you're doing when you get to that high end level of production and go, holy crap, that's too much. Because like I know for me, I refuse to go into mastering and all that sort of stuff because I'm like, no, that's I can't be bothered with
Yeah,
it. Like I will
yeah,
stick to my
yeah,
crappy
understandable.
sound that I have. That will do me. But do you have like any recommendations for anyone out there who's like trying to get into music production?
Well, generally, my recommendation is usually to try something software based first of all. I mean, I mentioned the Arturia soft synths, and
Yeah.
they're brilliant. You know that you can I think you can buy a big bundle of all of them, which I have. I mean, that's not cheap though. I think it's I don't even know how much it is, but it's hundreds of UK pounds, whatever that might be in Australian dollars. I'm not
Our
sure.
entire GDP probably.
Yeah. Uh, but they do like a basic kind of version called Analog Lab, um, which is great. It gives you like a flavor of a lot of different synthesizer sounds very quickly, and you know, I'm pretty sure it's cheap, so cheap in fact that if you buy I sound like a real shill for Arturia, but if you buy one of their like
Sponsor.
small MIDI keyboards, it usually comes with like a free version of Analog Lab, or
Mm.
indeed most MIDI keyboards. If you buy, they'll come with some kind of soft synth almost all of the time, and
Yeah.
that's a great way to get started. Excuse me. Because you've got a keyboard physically in front of you, then which you can plug into a laptop, plug into a desktop PC, probably plug into your phone, and you've got some kind of software synthesizer which lets you instantly start making noise and making a lot of noise, which is
Mm.
great. If you have a few different sounds at your fingertips straight away. So that's usually my recommendation as a go-to. But some people, myself and maybe yourself included, do like a bit of hardware, some kind of knobs to twiddle. So you've also got stuff like the Korg make a range of very small. I was going to say pocket synthesizers. They're not quite pocket unless you're wearing some real, late 90s, early 2000s Limp Bizkit baggy
Yeah,
jeans with the
the
biggest
Kinko
pockets you
jeans or
can
whatever
have.
they were called.
Yeah, exactly. So they're not quite pocket, but they're teeny tiny synthesizers nonetheless. The Volca series. I remember when I first started getting synthesizers, I picked up a bunch of them. And they're great. There's one called the Korg Volca FM, which does what's called FM synthesis, certain type of synthesis. It sounds immediately. It's very similar to the DX7, which is a very famous 80s keyboard, but also sounds very Sega Mega Drive very instantly because
Mm.
it used a Yamaha FM chip within its in its guts. So that's a cool thing to have. I think they're about 50 quid or something like that. They won't break the bank, and you instantly again can start making sounds. It's got like a tiny little ribbon keyboard on it, or you can plug a MIDI keyboard into it yourself if you like to. And that way you've got a way to make sounds and also adjust the sounds with your actual fingertips rather than clicking nebulous stuff on a screen, which is maybe less conducive to experimentation and stuff. So there
Mm.
are different routes to go in, but generally I think the best thing to do is to buy something that you can afford and that you like the look of and that you will
Mm.
want to play. There's no point. It's again like if people ask me what's a good beginner guitar, there are certain guitars I recommend. Maybe like the Yamaha Pacifica is a great shout,
Mm.
but ultimately I think it comes down to having something that you want to play that you will enjoy sitting down with for a bit. So that might look completely different to me as it would to somebody else. But as long as you have something that you want to engage with and you'll have good fun with, that's the main thing. Because learning an instrument or creating music, for me, it kind of lives and dies on fun. Making a
Yeah.
fun end project that's enjoyable, but also having a fun process. Because even if I'm doing something for work, I still want to enjoy it. I want to have that fun. I want to have that sense of wonder, at the back of my brain when I'm doing stuff. So yeah, if you want to make music, do it in a way that you're going to enjoy or that you hope you'll enjoy.
Yeah. So I want to touch back on just quickly on the video you did for the Kaizen Gameworks where you broke down a bit of those behind the scenes. Now, you were talking about that Japanese flute, which made me want to ask, because I'm terrible at remembering the names of all the different instruments, because I am very much a metalhead, stick to guitar, drum, bass, anything else that doesn't exist in my brain half the time.
Sure.
But what would you say is like the most exotic instrument that you own, and what sort of got you into trying all the different instruments that you play?
Oh, that's a really good question. In terms of the most unusual instrument, it's almost certainly going to be my Suzuki Waraku TES 100, which sounds like a robot, but it's not. It's a synthesizer version of an instrument called a Taishogodo, also known as a Nagoya harp, um, which is a regular Taishogodo is a beautiful instrument anyway. It's got these kind of slightly typewriter looking keys and strings that you pluck. So you can kind of play it like a keyboard with your left hand, but your right hand is operating in a similar way to playing guitar. It's got
Yeah.
five strings. Hum them, you can pluck them. Um, the synthesizer version that I have has those elements. It's got those kind of typewriter keys and it has strings that you can strum, but it is a synthesizer. It's based on string samples, which means that you have this wonderful kind of mix of real acoustic flavor, but with like a kind of slightly digital, crisp plastic sheen. I love when those worlds collide. It also is capable of. It's got like taiko drum pads on it. It can do flute sounds, which you play with the keyboard. It can do a weird vocal thing. It's an incredibly beautiful, bizarre instrument that came out of 1980s Japan, and I love it to bits purely because I've never seen or heard anything quite like it in my life
Mm.
anywhere else. It was a friend of mine, Summer, who recommended it to me after seeing Heinbach on YouTube playing one, who is a master of all kinds of weird and wonderful synthesizers. As soon as I saw it, I knew that I had to have it.
Yeah.
Basically, so that's the most unusual instrument I have. You mentioned the flute as well, the Japanese flute, which is the shakuhachi. Um, I have one of those, and it appears on Promise Mascot Agency and some of my own records. I like that a lot because I like it for a lot of reasons. It's a wonderful instrument, and again, it sounds very unique. I mean, it's this beautiful sonorous flute sound. I also like that it's incredibly difficult to play. So if I'm recording it for a project, again, whether it's something I've been hired for or something I'm just doing for myself, I have I have the benefit of being able to take about 1 million takes with it if I want, because this thing is really hard, man. You've got to hold your mouth in the exact right way. You have to hold the shakuhachi at a very precise angle, at a very precise height. Even now, after I've had it for a couple of years now, when I pick it up, there's still a good chance that I'm not gonna get a sound out of this damn thing. I kind of like it, in partly in spite of that, and also because of that. When I first started learning it, I was reading a book on it by a shakuhachi master called Masayuki Koga, who is fantastic and is still releasing music on Bandcamp too. What a dude! Um,
Legend.
and he had written in this book to he advised not to worry, basically, if you're not making a sound, and just to enjoy the element of just breathing and blowing through this thing, even if you're just hearing air come out the other side. And I really enjoyed that. And it felt like it was allowing myself to cut myself some slack. And actually, I ended up using the that plain breathing sound a couple of times on Promise Mascot Agency because I ended up enjoying it so much. So it was nice to make something cool out of what was originally a difficult situation.
Mm. So, with your pretty incredible little studio you've got going, have you got every instrument you want, or are you, like myself, always after that one more bit of kit?
Oh, dude, there's always going to be something cool, you know. I think, I was about to say I think I have everything I need, but I think that, and then I start like a new project, and I realize, oh, I need a hurdy gurdy or something,
Yeah.
I need a very particular loot. Um, and like I think I have access to most of the sounds that I need. I'm very lucky that I've got a lot of weird and wonderful stuff, as you say, and software is so great that if there's anything I need at short notice, I can always have access to these sounds. I mean, I've only got like everybody, I've only got so much room for stuff,
Yeah.
So I'm trying not to buy too much more. But every day I'm seeing something cool that I want. So I probably have everything I need, but do I really have everything I need? I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm good. I'll buy more stuff, and it's probably up to my wife whether I actually need it or not. I don't know.
We'll call it Schrodinger's instrument. We always
Yeah,
want it, but whether we get it, that's a whole other story.
that is very wise. Yeah.
So to get to Promise Mascot Agency, just to get back on that, do you have a favorite track from there, or just like a couple that like to you particularly stand out as your favorites, or like you consider your almost baby for that project?
Yeah, there are definitely a few. I mean, one that really jumps out, particularly because it's so unique within the soundtrack, is it's almost all instrumental apart from one track which I did with a wonderful Japanese singer called Nas, who I just love. I think she's incredible. She had a single out last year called Moon Sings, and like I listened to it so much. So getting to work with her has been a total delight. She's just incredible. So it's I like that track partly because I I wanted to make it as stripped back as at my end as possible to really focus on Nas's wonderful singing. She's got these incredibly deep, lush, stacked vocal harmonies, which I think are brilliant. So I love it to bits, and it's probably one of the ones I listen to most. Um, Apart from that, my other personal favorite is probably a track called Kasumachi Nights. It was one of the first tracks I wrote for the game. A lot of the soundtrack draws influence from Japanese jazz fusion of the 60s, 70s, 80s, and that is very much one of those tracks. As I said, it was one of the very first ones I did, and it's sometimes hard to tell how long a track's going to take. You know, I might be able to do a track, you know, in it might take a couple of days, it might take a couple of months, it might take a couple of weeks. Kazamachi Nights happened very quickly. It was one of those wonderful songs where it just kind of it almost feels like I'm a small part of the process, and
Mm.
it just kind of happened. It just fit together so quickly, so nicely, and to me, it's it's how the town of Kasamachi does sound at night. So I thought of the name for it very quickly. I thought of all the music very quickly. It's probably the one that I listen to most now. Maybe that's because it did happen so quickly, and I didn't have to listen to it 3 billion times when I was recording it.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
You didn't get
That's
tired of
one.
it.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, those would be the two that I would pick. But I listen to the whole thing quite a bit. You know, I'm not shy about listening to my own music because I made it because these are the sounds I wanted to hear. You know, so
Yeah.
I never shy about listening to my own stuff when I'm on my own. That is, I'm not going to go around to someone's house and stick on my music. You know,
Yeah.
I'm not a tech. You know, but I'll uh, I'll gladly enjoy it myself. Yeah.
Yeah, you have some decorum.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I have a small amount of decorum.
so one thing I wanted to ask, and this is just something I know I struggle to all hell with. What do you find harder, titling a track or writing the actual song? Because I find it way harder to come up with a title that fits.
Oh, you know, that's a really good question. Usually I think of the titles afterwards. It's very rare that I'll think of a title first. I think the only tracks I've ever done that with are I did like a really goofy album like based around like golf games, a whole golf themed album called 19th Hole, which I did a few years ago.
Mm,
It's kind of inspired by was inspired by two things. One of them is I don't play golf. I've never played golf. I don't really have any interest in golf, but I do love golf games. I also live right beside a golf club. There aren't really any like bars or pubs right exactly where I live, but there is this golf club. So I joined it as a social member just so I could go somewhere to hang out and drink beers with my pals. And like it's just such a wonderfully strange place. You know, you've got these kind of lush mahogany cabinets and crests everywhere. It just really appealed to me in a way where I simultaneously found it inherently funny, but also kind of beautiful in a strange way. So
mm.
I did this golf game, or sorry, this golf album, many moons ago. I remember like at Christmas time, I think in 2019 at Christmas. I sat down. I was waiting for a friend in a pub to go for some Christmas drinks. And I just wrote down like a load of the goofiest golf themed like title names I could think of, like "Gimme That Wood," "Bitch and Putt," "Oh Balls." Now that's hard driving. The smell of the green. I just wrote all these track names down, and then I wrote the music afterwards to fit, and that was great fun. But almost all the time, I'm doing the music first and then the title. Um, I think that I find the like making music is what I do. Uh, Making titles is a lesser part of that. Maybe I don't know. But I don't find it too tricky to think of titles. I usually am kind of have like a working title and that I'll bounce around in my head and then dial that into something more coherent.
Mm.
We talked about the track "Sweeping Up" earlier, which is the one I made that video about that you kindly watched and referenced. I think while I was making that, I'd called the working title that I'd chosen was "Shaku Funky," which is so awful. I couldn't wait to change it. You
Yeah.
know?
It's a lot more
Would
PG than the
regret
titles I name my songs when I'm working on them. Uh,
it.
just because I behave myself on YouTube. If I was on Twitch, I would say what I would normally say as an Australian.
Yeah.
Uh, Do this, you big
Go on.
fat. But I'll behave
Um,
myself.
yeah, exactly. You've got some decorum.
Yeah,
Uh,
some.
yeah. Um, so yeah, I don't find it too taxing to think of titles. I enjoy the music more. I don't know. I can't really say which one I find more easy or more difficult. I think they just live in two very different parts of my brain. But I certainly spend more time making the music than I do thinking of the titles.
Yeah. So you mentioned how, you've got some other music that you've obviously made, because clearly this isn't your first outing, just jumping into Promise Mascot Agency. Have you done, like, what sort of work have you done in the past that you would say, if someone wanted to look into your catalog, where would you recommend they start?
Honestly, the best place to look is, again, it sounds like I'm just trying to shill my own music, but
That's why you're
having a
here.
look.
Just saying.
Okay, it helps. I just want a friend to talk to for a while.
Look, we're all lonely. It's how it
Um,
goes.
yeah, exactly. I'm in my music dungeon like all day, every day. It's nice to have a human to speak to for a minute. I reckon looking at my Bandcamp page is always going to be the best way. It's lovely when people support me and buy stuff on Bandcamp, but even if they don't, it's a really nice resource. You can kind of visually see all the albums that I've put out, and it's very obvious. I think even to glance at some of them are very silly, like I mentioned the golf one. I've got like a train themed album. Some of them are very deeply serious. It's probably quite easy. I mean, you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, but it's probably quite relatively straightforward to glance at all the stuff and see, oh right, this is a dark metal kind of leaning album. This looks like it's going to be jazzy or whatever, and then people can dive into whatever they like. In terms of other projects, such as the life of a game soundtrack making dude, almost all the stuff that I am working on is and has been under NDA for many years.
Yeah.
So it's stuff that I can't really talk about a whole lot of stuff. But hey, actually, I've got a website now too. I've got alphachromeyayo.com.
Yes, I got to visit that today.
Oh, you have that?
Yes,
Oh,
it'll be
did
linked
it
in the
work?
description.
Because I knocked it up so quickly on Squarespace.
Yeah.
It was either that or making like a real gorgeous, horrible GeoCities style 90s monster of a website. I was very tempted.
The
to,
good
but
old
I thought I
days.
should try. Yeah. I did want to get knee deep in some HTML, but I thought I should again remain vaguely professional.
Keep it simple.
So yeah, exactly. So if people want to check me out, Bandcamp's usually the best way. And if they want to sort of dig deeper into any of the other weird and wonderful stuff I've done, I think I've got some bits and pieces on the website too.
Yep. And also, as you quickly mentioned, how you've got stuff that sort of leans into different genres. Have you got a genre that you find particularly difficult to write for, but you enjoy, or just you love doing any and everything?
Well, the stuff that I kind of did for Promise Mascot Agency probably falls under that category. But I think it was about 2018-ish. I started getting really into the sounds that I mentioned that heavily inspired Promise Mascot Agency, jazz fusion and stuff like that. I grew up listening to a load of metal. I've released a lot of stuff that kind of is very kind of some of it's kind of vaporwavy, some of it's kind of ambient chill. But I always wanted to make like a jazz records, and I just didn't know if I could do it. So I put out like a jazz EP in 2020 called Sunset Heat, mostly to see if I could, and it was tough, but it wasn't as tough as I was expecting. And now that's the music that I make the most, is kind of that jazz fusiony type stuff. Um, yeah, so it was something that I found difficult, and it is still quite time consuming. I mean, I was bad at music theory in school. My music teacher in school, total. I'm trying to watch my language here. He wasn't a nice guy. I remember him when I was like 15 or 16, never to consider a career in music. So it was nice to build a fight career.
Yeah.
Which is quite enjoyable to me. So yeah, jazz stuff probably fell under that category. It was something that I had trepidation about. I had to do a lot of learning, a lot of listening, but I like learning and listening, and now it's not what I do all the time, but I do make a lot of kind of jazz fusion stuff. We talked about metal too. I love metal. I grew up listening to loads of metal. I have been to countless metal shows. I don't get the gigs as much as I used to, but if I do go out to a gig, it's probably either going to be to a jazz club or to a metal gig.
Mm.
So I love writing metal tracks, and I think there's even a couple of metal tracks on Promise Mascot Agency, and it's music that
Yeah,
because I
when
don't
Shiori
record
gets bad, it tends to ramp up.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I got to do some sweet death metal growls for that. Um, yeah, because it's music I don't record quite as much of. I kind of almost have to rewire my brain a little bit when I'm recording it. I'm mixing it and mastering it in a slightly different way, and I can write a metal track quite confidently and quickly, but it just how I sort of go about the mixing the elements and stuff of it, it's slightly different, and I kind of always have to sit and shift myself into metal mode to
Yeah,
do it, you know. But hey, who doesn't love shifting into metal mode? You know, it's a
yeah.
good mode to be.
No, I definitely have a bit of a similar process because for the most part, I tend to play a lot more blues with a little bit of jazz these days because I prefer to play more relaxing, calm stuff. But every now and
Sure.
then, I'm just in that mood where it's like, no, we're going like drop A, we're putting on heavy distortion, going nuts. Assuming my cat isn't
Hell
trying to eat the guitar strings, as she tends to do, because she's like, oh, that's a toy. I'm like, no, it's not. Please don't.
Yeah, it's a serious piece of kit.
This cost me
I
more than everything else I own. Please don't do this. So it's always fun when that happens. But one other thing I wanted to ask, so when you get brought into a project like Promise Mascot Agency, as you said, you've got some stuff that's under NDA that we can't go into, which is perfectly fine. But can you kind of walk us through the process of what it's like kind of onboarding into something like that, and then sort of how you weigh up uh, just personal anxieties and expectations you're setting for yourself versus obviously what their expectations are, and how you find a good middle ground to make sure that you're producing work that you're proud of and not beating yourself up too much while also not underselling the level of content you're putting out, if
sure,
that sort of
sure.
makes sense.
Yeah, it completely makes sense. It's a weird one, and you're quite right. It's all about getting that balance right in your own brain, I think, to some degree. I think something that's really held me in good stead is the fact that I have done and continue to release a lot of my own stuff, and I know to some degree how to kind of balance in my head what audience expectations might be like, what my own expectations might be like for a project. But obviously, it's very different when you're working on a team where somebody has hired you to be part of a team, to be part of a project. I think in those instances, the main thing for me is just everyone being kind of upfront. Before I worked in music, I've worked for many other different places, and I've worked for. I'm talking about jobs completely unrelated to music,
Mm,
where kind of people have never been upfront, and there hasn't been accountability and stuff, which I don't like. I like it's great when everyone is on the same page and is honest and forthright about the things they can do. If somebody says to me, "Hey, can you do, um, case in point, earlier on we talked about Shiori's theme. Kaizen said, "Well, can you do like a death metal track that would suit this kind of mood?" They'd reference the anime show Agritsuko, which is great. Um, and I very quickly said, "Yeah, oh, absolutely. I can do these. I can do this. I've lived in this world." Um, but at the same time, if it was something which I couldn't do or I would struggle with, I would always be very upfront about that and say, "Well, it's not maybe my bread and butter, but hey, we'll give it a go," or we could dig down into, exactly what's expected and stuff. So I think as long as people are very clear with me about their expectations, and I'm very clear about um, what I will deliver, how I'll deliver it, when I'll deliver it, as long as everyone is just lays all the cards out the table, that counts for a lot, I think, for me, both on a personal level and in terms of ending up with a really good product, an end thing that people will enjoy, 'cause it gives more room for people to give their all if everyone is very, very forthright and clear about what we're doing here.
mm.
That sounds kind of vague and ephemeral, but just a bit of transparency, a bit of honesty, and a lot of hard work goes a long way. Um, and there's no harm in again, especially when it comes to music, there's no harm in trying something and then thinking, oh well, maybe what if this worked a different way? And so if I did one idea, that if something was suggested to me and I tried one idea, I would feel no qualms about going, hey, this is cool, but what if we tried something else? Or you know, you've got this track in one part of the game? What if we swapped around the other way or something?
Yeah.
Just a bit of not being not being shy, but also being aware of your capabilities and knowing what you can bring to the table is good. Big yourself up. It's and anyone who is making cool stuff is doing it, for whatever reason, whether it's a job or a hobby. People are out there doing cool things, and I think that's something to be celebrated, whether that's on a hobby level or in a work context. Be proud of what you're doing and confident in it, and balance that with knowing what you're capable of. I
Yeah.
think basically as well, it's all about balance and accountability and honesty and creativity. I know this sounds so vague, but it's just a weird mishmash of stuff that comes together to make something cool, I reckon.
Yeah. Because we're older gentlemen, as the polite way to put it. When it comes to musicians, there, especially I would say when we were younger, and I would still say to an extent today, there is this belief of the starving artist, this idea that you need to go through shit in life in order to be able to produce, magic out the other end. Now, given the opportunities that are now available, thanks to the internet being as interconnected as it is, being able to, as you said, work with an artist from Japan, which 30 years ago probably wouldn't really have that opportunity.
Sure, sure.
How would you like sort of try to advise up and coming musicians or someone who's thinking about like getting into music how to avoid falling for that trap?
It's a tough one, because it's a weird world to work in. Again, whether you're releasing music as just straight up as a hobby, or whether you're doing it as a career or something in between, there are so many sort of pitfalls and stuff. Um, but my kind of advice is like there's endless advice about technicalities of releasing music on platforms, whether it's Spotify or Bandcamp and stuff like that. But my
Mm.
usual musical advice is basically just to keep going. I don't mean that in a kind of release stuff endlessly until you're burnt out kind of way, because
Yeah.
that's no good for anybody. But just the simple act of keeping on making music is the single best bit of advice I think I could give in any kind of music making context. Because if you're continually making music, you're always learning, and you're learning both musically, you're learning your instruments, you're learning your craft, you're learning the production skills, but you're also learning how people receive music. You'll learn how to deal with you learn how to receive compliments and how to deal with maybe music not reaching as many people as you would like it to. And the
Mm.
more you do that, the more people you will reach, and the more sounds so wanky, but the more hearts you will touch.
Yeah.
you know, um, just the simple act of keeping going, it's everything. It helps you get better. It helps you get better at making music. It helps you get better at releasing music. You can find out the things that work, and keep doing them. You can find out the things that don't work and learn from them. As long as you don't stop, things will get better. And I also always advise kind of working out what the end goal is. And that doesn't mean you have to sort of say, right, I've decided that I want to, be a games composer, or I want to be a big touring musician, and you have to do everything to get that. Because, your ideas of what you might want to do will change, and that's
Mm.
fine. But always have your eye on something, and whether that's a goal that might shift or change into something else. If you have your eye on some kind of a prize, it's a lot easier for me anyway to kind of work towards that, because you can break down, well, okay, well, how will I do that? If I want to, be selling out these big live shows or something, who are the people that I need to speak to? Should I be going to networking events or whatever for people? I don't really play live too much, but I am going to do some more live shows, but that's not really a thing for me. So more in my position, I spent years thinking, right, well, how do I showcase the fact that I like to work in different genres. I thought, well, I'll just release the music. I'll just make different genres to see if I can do it, and if I might be thinking, well, how do I get more radio play? Well, the answer to that might be to build like an electronic press kit and send stuff out to the local radio stations, or things like that. But if you always have kind of goal at the back of your head, and you maintain that spirit of keeping going, of resilience, of learning, and ultimately of not taking shit from people.
Mm.
I think that will go a long way, no matter what way you're approaching music and what it is you want to do with it.
Yeah. So like one of the things I'm a very strong advocate for is always having something you can work on, even if it is just a hobby that is in a way never ending. And like for me, music is one of those things, and making videos is another where it's like, sure, I can have my ultimate video or I can have my magnum opus song that's like I've worked towards this, I've created it, I'm extremely happy. But I always understand there's more to learn to this medium. I can always increase my abilities and my skills. And speaking of, do you have a song that you consider your magnum opus or like something that you consider your best work? Or are you someone who sort of sees your work as kind of equal because they've all got their own challenges that went into them?
I mean, it's probably mostly the latter. Like a lot of people, I tend to kind of like the last thing that I did because I'm in that moment then, but there are songs that are definitely tracks that I released that I like more than others, that I will probably always like more than others. But it just kind of varies depending on my mood. In terms of, I think about my own music probably the same way then that I think about other music. My favorite song on Monday might be very different to my favorite song on Wednesday. But it is very interesting you mentioned that kind of never ending approach to something, which is really interesting because I think that is very similar with me for music as well. Again, whether it's music I'm doing for work or whether it's doing music I'm doing for myself, I always want to have something going on. I like to have something of each. I like to have work music and I like to have my own music, whether that's an album I'm going to release or whether it's just I'm just jamming out in my studio for like an
Mm,
hour in the evening or something. I like that kind of eternity of like never ending stuff, as you said. But I find that I kind of don't like that outside of music.
yeah.
I was chatting to my the other day. We're in the middle of like fixing up our garden and making it kind of nice for the summer. And I was saying to my wife, "Oh, I can't wait till we're all done and the garden looks great." And she was saying, "No, no, we'll never be done. There's always stuff to do in the garden. It doesn't work like that." And that's why she likes it. But I don't. I want it to be done. I want to complete the garden. I wanna finish it like the last level of a game, and I want it
Yeah.
to be done. But
Yeah.
but it turns out it doesn't work that way. So it's weird. I with music, I like the fact that, there's always more stuff to do. There's always another song to make. There's always another instrument to learn. There's always, another, like, goofy video I could be making for Blue Sky or whatever. There's always another track or another project that I want to work on or something. But
Mm,
outside of that, I think I like a finite thing. I like my non-musical stuff that I do. I think I mentioned before online that I'm a big believer in having hobbies that are strictly just a hobby that you have no
yeah.
interest monetizing whatsoever. I have a few hobbies like that. I do shodo, like Japanese calligraphy, and I do like little flower arrangements and stuff. I'm not very good at them, which I think is like it almost helps if you're a bit shit at some of your
Yeah.
hobbies, I think. Because then you don't get too hung up on it. You don't want or need it to be perfect. It's just something you can sit down and do for 10 minutes. So I guess it's probably a good idea to have a never-ending hobby and also to have a couple of short, finite ones that you don't really worry about too much.
Yeah. Like I've been slowly trying to get into photography because a mate lent me his
Oh, nice.
camera because he had a spare one because he's fallen into it. But he hasn't been doing photography himself for a while, and he'd been a bit down about it. And I'm like, all right, well, obviously now because I live a little bit further away with where I live now, we need to organize a time where it's like, okay, well, I live right next to a golf course myself, but I'm like, there's a lot of paddocks and lakes and stuff around here, like
Sure.
a lot of nice just vegetation. Come out here and we'll go do it, even though I'm absolute dog shit at photography. The only nice photos I get of my cat. That's about it. Everything else I can't really do because my cat's the only thing I really care about. But um, I've got really three main more questions.
Sure.
Firstly, what is your process behind writing a song? Now, I know your video that you did. on that Kaizen Games Work channel, and hopefully you'll do more in the future because it was a really great behind the scenes look. Sort of broke it
Thank you
down.
so
But
much.
if you had to sort of summarize your process.
Yeah, no worries. I mean, it kind of it will vary track to track, or especially genre to genre. But most of the time, um, well, for like maybe 80% of the time, as I said, I'll sit down with the MIDI keyboard, some kind of very quickly loaded up basic software synth type sound, and I'll bash out a chord progression. I like. I think melody is really important. But I like creating the like a chord progression first, and that
Mm,
instantly kind of gets my musical cogs flowing and my
yeah.
my juices pumping. That sounds revolting.
Nah.
But yeah,
Hey, some people pay
that
good money
kind
for that.
of, that kind of starts me off. And once I've kind of got like a rough idea of even just a very basic chord progression, I might start augmenting that with some weird like jazz extensions and stuff. If it's something kind of jazzy leaning, that's always a really good first building block for me. And then I'll fill it up with bass, with drums, with whatever it requires. Um, that's kind of where I start. Usually, it's not always that way. I mean, some of the kind of more ambient leaning stuff I do, especially with slightly more bleeps and blips and synthesizer noises, I might be the complete opposite, where I might start with some kind of weird synth sound and dial in a really strange patch and see where it takes me. But usually, I'm starting with chords, and then I'll build that up. I'll build in the melody, I'll build in the bass, um, and then at that point, once I've got kind of that backbone there, that's when I can really start having fun with it. I can start saying, oh, well, what if we, put these chords upside down and try some different versions and stuff? Or, what if we replace this simple bass line with some kind of funked out slap bass monstrosity? Or,
Yeah.
where's our solo gonna fit? And, do we want to get weird and modal with this? I kind of like, I mentioned that I like changing genres quite a lot just because it keeps me interested in what I'm doing. What I really love is when I get the chance, which I can do this anytime with my own music, is to switch up genres midway through a track. We
Yeah.
mentioned metal earlier on. Excuse me. We mentioned metal. One of my favorite bands is a Japanese avant-garde metal band called ACY, who I've loved since I was 15. I got to see them last year. Whipped ass. They ruled so much. I always love that. Um, they a lot of their albums have a habit of like flicking genres, even like within 10 seconds. So 1 minute it's a black metal track, and we've got these kind of got the chorus paint, we've got the screechy vocals, and then it'll go into like a jazzy funk breakdown. And I love once I've got that initial backbone of a track, I can start thinking in that regard. I can go, what if this turns into a disco track halfway through,
Yeah.
or do I want to have some weird vocals in this? Am I going to bust out the vocoder and do some robot voices? Am I going to find? I'm a shit singer, but I've got
I'll
like
guarantee you're
drum
better than
boxes.
me.
I don't know, dude. I was doing karaoke a couple of weeks back, and yeah, it was rough. Although I did manage to belt out some fairly accurate Limp Bizkit, I think, relatively accurate. I don't know, maybe it's the beers talking. But it was cool. But yeah, I think for me, the getting down some kind of initial backbone and just getting started. Again, it's the same kind of thing of just keep on going. By the same token, just start. Just get something down, and then you can start twisting it and bending it, and you can take an initial idea and stick with it, or you can twist it and bend it, stretch it past its elastic limit, and make it into something really bizarre and weird if you want to. So yeah, I usually start simple and then I go nuts. That's
Yeah.
probably the easiest way to sum up my thoughts.
One question I love to debate with fellow musicians whenever I get a chance is, what do you think is more important overall, the rhythm and groove or the melody? I am very much the rhythm and groove type of person. I think that's more important overall, like if it was a 60-40 split or 55-45. Like you still need to obviously have a melody to make it something that can get stuck in someone's head, but I love rhythm and groove. Where would you fall on that debate?
Oh, it's a tough one because they are both so important to me with a track. I'm probably thinking about the rhythm and the groove first, personally. And then finding a melody to fit. It's not always that way. Maybe I'll think of a melody when I'm in the shower or I'm driving in
Mm,
the car and walking the dog or something. Um, I think they're both so important, but I do think that I probably put my mental focus on the kind of the rhythm and the not even necessarily the rhythm and the groove, but I think about the feel of the
Yeah.
song first and foremost. It's probably it's even a bit more a bit more ephemeral than the than even quantifying it by saying rhythm. I think about the vibes first. For
Yeah.
me, the vibes are probably the most important element. Um, that's kind of true of my life in general. With my studio here, yeah, I've got cool gear everywhere, but it's more important to me to have the vibes right. Like I've got stickers of my friends' bands all over the shop. I've got like a floral design on the wall and stuff like that. For me, that's kind of as important as the gear that I use to make music. And
Yeah.
it's similar in terms of the breakdown of a song that the vibes are going to trump all. So if the root to the vibes is focusing on the rhythm and the groove, that'll be the answer. If the route to getting the vibes just right is maybe focusing on something way stripped back where melody is the forefront, then it's going to be the melody.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess my answer is whatever the vibes dictate.
Yeah. No, that's fair. That's fair. We'll call that the politician answer. Play both sides. Can't go wrong.
Yeah.
But no, I can definitely agree with that. That makes a lot of sense to me. One question I wanted to ask. Sorry, I've got to lean back from the microphone. My cat decided to jump up for a cuddle, and then she wanted to jump
Hey,
down
it
again.
happens.
Um, Now, as a musician who's now composed for a pretty successful indie game that's doing quite well, I wanted to ask: is there a game that you like in history, if you were given the opportunity to compose for it, like regardless of what was composed for it, that you think,
Sure.
oh man, I would love to have an attempt to make the soundtrack for that game?
Oh, dude, the answer is that comes straight to my head. Well, there are two. The first one is going to be something from like the Like a Dragon or the Yakuza series. I mean, I love those games. When I first started making music as Alpha Clone Yayo, I was making like really kind of goofy, fairly crap songs, inspired by the Yakuza games, which is when it came around full circle, I found out that Kaya Kuroda of Kiryu fame was going to be
Yes.
voicing bitches out in Thomas Passport Agency. I just about lost my mind. Like it broke me when Ollie from Kaizen told me about that. I think I think my response was something was like, what does this mean or something?
Yeah.
My brain just started. Yeah, it still makes me kind of emotional even thinking about the fact that I've that I'm vaguely involved with Kuroda-san somehow. So I would love the chance to write some music for one of those games, particularly one of the karaoke songs.
Yeah.
I love the karaoke tracks in the Yakuza games. So if I could somehow have some hand in doing a track that would be performed with Kuroda's vocals, or indeed any of the cast of those games, that would kick ass. I'd like that a lot. Apart from that, I mean, I love the Persona series, and a few
Mm.
people I've seen a couple of people, or more than a couple of people, um, say that the Promise Masquerade the soundtrack has they feel like it has kind of Persona vibes. To me, that's a big compliment. I mean, I love those
Mm.
games. I love soundtracks. I listen to them so much. So yeah, if I had the chance to work on the Persona series, I would jump at that too. But there's so much. I read a lot of kind of bizarre visual novels and stuff, which that makes me sound way hornier than it's meant to. 'Cause a lot of them are a
Look,
lot
we
of
love
visual novels.
titties. It's okay. It's allowed.
I'm I'm playing through the 100 line at the minute, and like the because in a visual novel, because sometimes you have words and you have maybe an image sometimes, and sometimes not a lot else. I mean, the 100 lines definitely different, got like strategy kind of RTS elements, but a lot of visual novels, you're just alone with the words and maybe a couple of sprites or a moving image or something, and then
Mm.
it's just the music. Um, I kind of like that. It gives the music a real chance to shine.
Mm.
So I'd love to work on some VN stuff too, which I think could be cool. I mean, maybe I should be aspiring to loftier heights. And well, there are no loftier heights than Persona and Like a Dragon for me.
Yeah,
But I
to be
would also
fair.
like to work.
I mean, you're talking like arguably the biggest Japanese games in the
Yeah,
West
the
at the
highest
moment.
height.
So,
But
uh,
I would also work on some weird visual novels made in some dude's basement as well. You
Yeah.
know, so I want to keep my I want to keep my sights high and low at the same time. Another politician's answer, if you
Yeah.
will.
No, it's the way to play it. Just as a quick shout out to my friend Sned, who's been wanting to make one for ages. I've got you a musician lined up. Get on it, you lazy prick. Um,
Amazing.
he'll get a good giggle out of that because he's been like slowly learning game dev because he's been wanting to make a visual novel for ages and he keeps putting it
Oh,
off.
amazing.
So
That's a badass.
it's a pretty
Yeah,
it was a pretty funny idea from memory. That it's definitely not politically correct, so I won't share it here. But it was a very funny idea, and I think he should do it. And the last real question I wanted to ask, we talked about this very briefly before we started, because I also spoke about this with the Kaizen GameWorks team as well, where
sure.
because the games are so creative, and with the prominence of AI becoming more and more of an issue within sort of the creative space. And I mentioned, as you mentioned as well, how Paradise Killer is such a unique game, just in
Yeah,
every aspect. And the same with Promise Mascot Agency. It's like, even though it's got elements from other games, it is a truly one of one type experience. And like I asked them something along the lines, because we did this interview about a week ago, just to give a bit of behind the scenes as to when I did this recording. Uh, Something along the lines of, with AI becoming more prominent, do you think that it will either undermine your work and, unfortunately bury it because it becomes more of a free for all? Or do you think because a lot of AI stuff is, as we spoke about earlier, kind of missing that heart and soul, that human creative spirit behind it, that it makes yours almost shine more?
I think I would come down on the latter side. I mean, my real answer is that I just kind of don't think about it other than thinking, well, yeah, that's a thing that sucks, you know. I mean,
Yeah.
like as you just said, AI music, like talking for me very particularly from a musical perspective, like I don't even know if I really heard much AI music because I don't seek it out, and if I listen to something that I don't like, I'm just gonna turn it off. I'm not gonna go dig into it, go, oh,
Mhm.
some like dude like just type in a prompt and spit this out, like it kind of has currently anyway has no real bearing on me other than me thinking it sucks. I'm not worried about it. I think people are smart. People like the things they like for a reason, and a lot of that reason is the humanity, the heart and soul behind it, the lived experiences, the fact that you can that somebody is imbuing a thing they have made with the culmination of everything that they love and appreciate, and they're channeling it into this one experience. And maybe again, I'm being idealistic, but I think that comes through. You when you listen to something, you can hear humanity in it, and that can be as simple as like sometimes like happy mistakes. If I'm making something and I play, what is in terms of music theory the wrong note. Those weird outside notes sometimes are better,
Yeah,
and
where you
I
break
don't
the
think
rules.
AI would be. Yeah, exactly. We know when to break the rules, whereas AI by its very nature is sticking to the rules which it has been taught. And that's
Yeah.
boring. And I think people are smart. And they'll they can identify when something is boring, even if people are maybe not equipped to identify whether something is AI or not. I think everyone is certainly equipped to identify things they like, and I think that human-made music is just inherently more likable.
Mm.
So I don't worry about it. I've never actually thought about it in terms of my own music, maybe standing out more if there's a sea of AI slop out there. I guess maybe that's true, but also, loads of people are making great music all the time, so there's
Yeah.
always human-made stuff out there, and I don't think about a sea of robot shit.
Yeah.
Basically. Actually, weirdly, I do love like robot voices. I use like a lot of old text to speech voices and stuff.
Yeah, I
Um,
I love the
and
the Pina Snipper guy meme. That voice gets me every friggin' time with like there's just something about it where it's like I can give this a pass, but like this I can't. But like this because like it's not serious. It's not designed to essentially replace somebody. It's just here as a
yeah,
we're using it as a tool to make the joke. We're not using it as you know
yeah, like, as
the
as a
heart and
creative
soul of the joke because like the AI didn't make the peanut snipper joke, someone else did, and they're just using AI to voice it.
I'm kind of glad to hear that because I haven't like I use really old text to speech robots on like old Mac OS 9 computers and
Mm,
stuff that way predate any of this shit. But I haven't really been doing that as much because I don't want people to listen to it and go, oh, that's like an AI voice. And like the AI kind of TikTok voices and stuff I do find like grating and stuff. But maybe that's just because I grew up, 7 years old on my like Mac computer at home typing rude words and making the computer say it. I found
yeah.
that funny then. I
Who
still
was it?
find it funny
Microsoft
now.
Sam. I think was the
Yeah, yeah,
yeah. I used to
exactly.
sit there for hours, like,
Uh,
I wonder how many times I can make him say the C word before Mum gets mad at me.
yeah, yeah, exactly. It's funny. I was thinking about this earlier on. I was thinking about Daft Punk, and they said something similar a couple of years back that they don't like want to. I mean, I'm sure Daft Punk aren't doing Daft Punk for a lot of reasons, but they were asked about AI and stuff, and they were saying that it feels kind of crappy being a robot in a world where robots are arguably making stuff a lot worse. I think there's some degree of truth to that. So
Mm,
now I still love the songs I've done where I have those old ancient text speech robot voices, and I use like as I mentioned, I've got like a vocoder and a talk box and stuff like that,
yeah.
which make me a robot purely because I'm a rubbish singer. I'll still keep doing that kind of thing. But yeah, that's my main takeaway from AI is that it's kind of slightly ruined the appeal of those lovely old 90s robot voices, which I love deeply. And you know what? Screw it. I've always loved like 90s robot voices. I'm still gonna keep loving it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They've got
So
a charm to them.
they do, and they're nothing to do with the AI slop. The Marvin voice from Mac OS 9
Yeah.
would be horrifying to learn about all this. I don't know.
uh,
So yeah,
'Cause
AI man, generative AI just straight up sucks. But I don't let it bother me. I'm not
mm,
worried about it. Well, I'm worried about it in the sense that it sucks, and I don't want to see a load of this slop on my timeline. But
mm,
maybe it'll fade away, maybe it won't. But I'm gonna keep on doing what I'm doing. I'm gonna keep on making the stuff that I make. I'm gonna keep on enjoying the stuff that other people make, whether that's music, whether it's games, whether it's podcasts, whether it's videos, movies. I'm still gonna enjoy. I'm gonna keep on enjoying cool stuff made by humans, and the slot machine can flop off.
yeah. That's not the political answer. You've now upgraded from being a politician. But no, I very much agree. I am like, I, I, as time has gone on, I've become more and more against the use of AI in a lot of fields. Because I love technology, I love seeing where it can advance, where it can go, but AI to me is holding a lot of things back because it is playing by rules. It doesn't know how to break them. It doesn't know how to be creative because it's not by default. All it does is give generic statistical probability answers that are going to be
Exactly.
this is the best of this. And like if you're someone who's getting into music and you've used AI to, start creating some stuff just to get like a feel for it, I'm not going to hate you for it by any means. I think like using it as a tool to get started to sort of see how things work if you are just not connecting with any of the millions of tutorials that are out there on the internet. I don't have a problem with that. But, I am of the ultimate belief, like, using it as a little tool for like, oh, I used it for like this one specific sound that I could not generate in any way, shape, or form. Like as you said, with those text to speech voices, I'm not gonna hate that. I think that's using it in almost the correct manner, where it's like it's a tool in my arsenal, it's not the arsenal. Where I think like a lot of people are using it purely as an arsenal now, which is where I sort of really start to disconnect with a lot of the stuff that gets made with it, because it, as you said, right, it's lacking that soul, that human ingenuity, that creative side of it. Because I think if we take what it gives us and we use just a fraction of what it's doing, and then we manipulate it to create our unique sound, then you could do something with it. But at that point, you might as well just start from scratch because you'll be able to create something even more unique, more so than something that's based on a generic library.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems so ill placed to have AI doing creative stuff. Seems like
Yeah.
the one realm where you just really don't want AI. is in the creative space. I mean, there are many places where I'm sure in other industries it can enhance things.
Yeah, like,
I
I'm scientific, medical
I
research,
don't
stuff
know.
like that, I'm like,
Exactly,
"Hell
yeah. I
yeah,
mean,
use the power
oh,
for that."
yeah, exactly. If it can be used to save lives or to cure diseases, absolutely awesome. If but like, why would I want an unfeeling machine to
Do
make
my
art?
art. It
I
reminds me of that
just
scene
don't
from,
get.
I, Robot, "Can you write a symphony?" "Oh, can you?" It's like, well, yeah, you can write a generic one, but, like, just because I can
Yeah,
write one
yeah,
by
yeah.
theory doesn't mean it's a good symphony. Like, it's
Exactly,
like,
exactly.
I know the music theory behind it, but it doesn't mean it's good, you know? Like, you need someone who knows how to really compose to create that style. But we're gonna move into the last question, and this is my absolute favorite question to ask. If you could replay any game from any point in your life for the first time again, like experiencing it for the first time, what game would you pick and why? And you are allowed to have some honorable mentions.
That's really tough. I mean, I'd mentioned my deep, deep love for the Yakuza series, so a very obvious choice would be Yakuza 0. Um,
Yes. Are you excited for the director's cut?
yeah, I mean, I hadn't really planned on getting is it's coming out in Switch 2, was that right? I think
Yeah,
on
I
the
think it might
platforms,
come to
yeah.
PC as well.
Um, I think
I'll have to
I
double
know I
check, by the way.
say now that I'm not planning on a Switch 2, but I don't know. I'm very easily swayed with these things. So yeah, I mean, I'm gonna make sure that I get to play it definitely 100%. Um, it changed my life so fundamentally, that game. I felt like it rewired my brain. It made me a better person. Like as I said, the music that I was doing when I first started doing Alpha Chrome Yayo, that was all Yakuza stuff. So arguably, the way my life is now, I don't think that it would be like that. I don't think I would be like that. I don't think my life would be like that if I hadn't played Yakuza Zero. So it's easy for me to say, oh yeah, I'd love to have another go at that. But I don't think I can really truly give that as the answer, because if I hadn't played Yakuza Zero at the time where I played it, we might not be having this conversation now. So I'm really glad that I did do it when I did it. Um, so no, I'm sorry, it can't be Yakuza Zero. I don't know. An outside shout, but I think maybe Deadly Premonition, which is
Ooh,
I don't know if you
Swery's
ever played
game.
it, but yeah, exactly, exactly. I love that game so much. And I do replay it a lot, but it's a slightly twisty, turny, very Twin Peaks influenced game for anyone who hasn't
It
played it. It's
is
kind of
just the most wild experience of a game.
it is. It's incredibly bizarre. It is willfully junky. And
You wouldn't have it
it's
any other
I
way.
hear a lot of people saying exactly, yeah. I hear a lot of people saying, "Oh, it's so bad that it's good." I don't think that's true. I just think it's good. Um, I genuinely
Yeah.
do. I think it's the sum of everything. I don't think the junk is. I don't sort of play it, and I kind of laugh at how crap the car controls. I kind of think the fact that the car controls badly is it's part of the experience. You're in this strange town where nothing makes sense. Of course, the car shouldn't work right.
Yeah.
I like that. It's just great. Um, but there's a whole mystery element to it, and you're trying to work out who the mastermind is behind all these kind of crimes and whether it's a supernatural element or not. And because I know what happens now, yes, I replay it a lot, and I love replaying it. But I would really like to have. I'd like to eternal sunshine my mind just for Deadly Premonition, and enjoy that from the start one more time. That would be sick.
Yeah,
But
I've
regardless, I'm probably gonna play it again like
yeah.
next week. I don't know. I think I played it like 3 or 4 times in the past year. I love it to bits. And of course,
Yeah.
Sweary's in Mascot Agency too,
Yeah, I
which
was I was
is
just about
quite
to mention,
incredible to me as well.
shout out to Swery.
Yeah,
He makes some really great stuff. He's just what a dude. Like, I wish I could
yeah.
get inside
Again,
his brain. He's almost like the Kojima's weird cousin. And like to me, like he's like, you think Kojima's weird? Let's go further.
that's so accurate. You go around to Kojima's house at Christmas and swear he's the weird uncle in the corner or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's incredibly accurate. Yeah,
It's
I
on
like
my
that
list
so much.
to do a video on because I was gonna do it. I'm still torn if I want to do a regular retrospective on it, or if I want to do
Yeah,
a taking out the trash, which is where I look at games people consider to be bad and then talk about the good points, the okay points, and the bad points. to actually
Yeah,
see
yeah.
if it's bad, because like I just as a heads up for anyone, because I think this will probably come out after it's technically come out. But I will have done Back for Blood, which is the Left 4 Dead spiritual successor, and people just hated that game. And I played it at launch. I'm like, yeah, it's all right. Like I didn't hate it. And then I went
Sure,
back and
sure.
played it now, and I'm like, I really don't understand a lot of the complaints. Like I'm struggling to see, oh, I hate this game because it has more mechanics that work.
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
what? You hate that you get more
Yeah, well,
game? Like I'm a
yeah,
bit lost
you've got
here.
more stuff.
You know,
Yeah.
like I can hate the pricing. The fact that the game is still $90 Australian is freaking crazy, but
That's
you know,
spicy.
the gaming industry and its pricing, this is why indies are going to be king going forward, in my opinion. And that's why I want to
Hey, I
support
hope
indie
so.
games as
Yeah.
much as possible. So definitely, everybody, check out Alpha Chrome Yayo. There'll be links to his website, his YouTube, his Blue Sky, and his Bandcamp down below. Go listen to his music. And also check out Promise Mascot Agency. There will be a link in the description below to go check that game out. That is currently my game of the year. And a little bit of brown nosing to finish us off. I will say it is also my soundtrack of the year so far, because even though the guy
Maybe.
who worked on Doom, he did a great job. He, unfortunately, he is no Mick Gordon, and I don't mean any offense, but you beat out a Doom soundtrack for me, which is incredibly difficult to do.
Hey,
So I've got to give you that.
that's a career highlight. I should get that tattooed on my chest. Better than Doom.
Better than Doom soundtrack. Well, Doom Dark Ages. I don't know about Eternal in
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
2016. Sorry, buddy.
Yeah. That's all right. I'll temper my expectations.
No worries. Have you got anything in the works that you want to share with anybody before we go, or is it all under NDA?
You know, kind of everything I'm doing soundtrack wise is very much all under NDA. I guess what I will say is that I'm really excited about it. I mean that doesn't really tell anybody much
Yeah.
or anything. A lot of the stuff I'm working on is the kind of thing that I've always wanted to work on, and that rules. So yeah, I can't say much about it. Sorry, but if anyone else has a cool project that they can talk about and they want me involved, give me an email. I don't know.
Yeah.
Then we'll talk about it.
Definitely follow Alpha Chromeo on Blue Sky, especially if you want to see updates on what he's working on, and just cool posts in general, because you're pretty active there and you post a lot of cool stuff. And keep your eyes on the Kaizen Gameworks YouTube page as well for those behind the scene breakdowns of how you made those songs, because I really enjoyed the one you did that came out today.
So much. Yeah, I love doing it. I'm definitely gonna do more. It's one of those things I didn't really know if people would be interested in all my weird stuff, basically. So the fact that you dug it means a lot to me, and I will definitely do more. And hey, thanks so much for talking to me and hanging out. It's been great, and thanks to anyone listening to me waffle on about nonsense. I appreciate it very deep.
No worries. So with that, lads, ladies, gents, ladetts, whoever, whatever, it brings us to the end of another video. I hope you enjoyed this chat with Alpha Chromeo. I hope to see you guys in the next one. Stay safe out there. Bye.